Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Our patient today is a Surface Pro 5. Now this one is salvageable because it is a cracked screen obviously, and I think even touch works on it partially, but the frame is not bent. It's not bent and it's not hit. Usually when you get these on eBay, either 4, 5 or 7, they're usually hit like this, which causes the frame to deform slightly, which means you cannot replace the screen without correcting the frame. And to correct the frame, you need the specialty tool that probably you need to build yourself. And I've never seen it, but maybe there are tools available to bend the frame back into position, basically like a vise, four-way vise, and with the screw to just push it in all directions and clamp it here to make it straight again. It is possible. This is aluminum, so it bends easily, and for the same reason, usually when you get these, the frame is bent. And I have the whole shelf of these with frames slightly bent enough that I cannot replace, reliably cannot replace the display. The other thing with these is that it's pretty time consuming. If you're thinking of buying these on eBay and replacing the screens and selling them, it's a lot of work. And you're looking to make maybe $50 on one at best, and usually probably closer to $20 for a lot of work. And main work is not even removing the screen. You can get highly proficient in removing the screens. That part is easy, but then you have to clean the frame from the previous adhesive, and if it's an original adhesive, it's pretty hard to remove. That is very time consuming. Then cleaning, after removing the adhesive, cleaning both the screen and the frame, and you need these little babies, those little clamps, to press the screen firmly and keep it pressed for a while, because if this the screen being flat on the frame is essential to proper work of the digitizer. If it starts peeling anywhere or it's not adhered correctly, the digitizer might not work properly. It's actually essential is this part over here where the ground touches the screen. This needs to be touching very well to the ground, because that's how it works. So when you lift the screen and you just hold it like this, the digitizer might have issues. But if you hold it from the back, you make the good connection with the ground on the other side of the screen, the digitizer starts working correctly. So it's relatively essential to do this correctly, do this diligently. So let's do it. In this case, I'm not going to be using the business cards, and don't give me credit for that method. I also found it on the other YouTube channel. This wasn't my idea. But I'm not going to be using that because obviously this screen is done. Now, since this is going to be relatively boring job, let me tell you about the day 21. Well, today is day 22. And I had my first interview. It's a bit too much said, my first interview, because it was completely an AI interview, right? The format, exact same. First, the AI chatbot introduces himself. It was male voice. So the chatbot introduced himself, and a few questions, like generic questions. How do you ensure, like stuff about architecture and session security, like pretty basic, typical questions you would find on an interview, just to kind of, feel the interviewee, right? So not much there. But then the coding question, or the coding test. It was for 20 minutes. I did not need 20 minutes. I think I solved it in roughly 10. The question, easy to understand, easy to extrapolate, relatively easy to find fringe cases, and pretty easy to code in. There were I had some issues, meaning the problem was basically you probably maybe even had the same one, the book inventory, right? Or processing the book request, and you can assume that you have a helper method called is the book available, which returns true or false. But since it doesn't return the actual availability, the actual quantity available, I had to make an assumption that there's always only one book available, because that was in the example. If you request 2 books in the same queue, the first request is processed, the second request goes to pending. But that was my assumption, so that was not the best coding challenge I've seen, because typically when you devise coding challenge, you don't want the person taking the test to make any assumptions. Everything should be clear. In this case it was not, but I do believe that was the assumption that was supposed to be made, or at least I'm hoping that is the case. But the code itself, pretty plain and simple, and in PHP 7.4, surprisingly. So I couldn't use any of the syntactic sugar that PHP 8.2 came up with. Not that it's my requirement or something. If they work in PHP 7.4, I'm fine with that. That limits your use of frameworks like Laravel to version 8, so you can't use version higher than 8 if you want to maintain PHP 7.4 compatibility. But it's still maintained, so it's fine. The ticketing system I'm working on, initially it was developed on 7.4, and at the moment I haven't broken the compatibility with 7.4. Now in production it runs on PHP 8.2, but it can run on PHP 7.4. So just it's not an issue for me, meaning. But everything handled by AI, and as far as how does it feel being interviewed by an AI, it's not great. Okay, it's not great, but the good old days where we had an upper hand as engineers, and we named our terms, and they had to play by our rules. Those times are over. Those times are long gone. So now we have to adapt to the new reality, where you don't even get to talk to anyone until you jump through all the hoops with AI. No point complaining about it, so don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. but it is um, it is different, you know. But in all fairness, we have been spoiled as the software engineers for the past even decade, I would say. We have been spoiled. So now it's time to separate men from the boys. And you have to compromise. Like back in the day, and until today actually, or until nowadays, I have never written a cover letter. And it's not like, my beliefs or something. I just think that, my work, my resume, all that speaks for itself. I don't need to come up with a generic cover letter that I just switched the name of the company, and it doesn't really mean anything, and who has time to even read all that? There's not going to be anything in my cover letter that would not be prominent on my resume, or that would be relevant to the job. So it's just another kind of hoop you have to jump through. And yesterday I decided to start working on that. Now obviously I haven't written it. I used ChatGPT to generate one for me, because I've never even written a cover letter before, and it was never needed. No one really wanted that. But, 20 days, no results. I have to start changing something again. Recently I've updated the resume and stuff, and I applied to few jobs, but the main issue at the moment is that there are no jobs. And the most scary factor actually is that I'm applying to the companies that I know just laid off hundreds of engineers, possibly much better engineers than myself. And I'm like questioning myself, like, what am I doing? They just laid off crap load of people like me, and here I am applying for that position. How likely is it that I'm gonna get it? Very So that is the scariest thing right now to me. And I even look at these, listen to these other channels, which, on one hand, they're supposed to give you an advice, and, but I'm growing tired of advice that I get from these channels, because it is so vague and so generic that you can't really say that it's invalid advice. Sure, it's good advice, but it's never anything actionable, or it's just be a CEO of your career. Fine. Network more. Like what exactly? Am I supposed to post on LinkedIn? And then I hear that, if you change your status to open to work, then no one's gonna hire you. Like, what kind of logic is that? Something disturbing has happened to this whole market, and one of the key metrics. I don't remember the actual numbers, but a lot of engineers in my position moved on to the other sectors, and the only companies that seem to be hiring nowadays are in, what do you call it, in healthcare business, those health apps, I assume, and stuff like that, startups, and you know. And it's not like I have anything against startups. I have worked for many, and it's usually pretty fun work. But it's also not very stable work. By stable, I mean, today you work on this, tomorrow we work on that, and if this is something that you like, because it is, on one hand, kind of exciting, and you never grow bored. You always have some new toy to play with, some new technology. You possibly do a lot of research and finding new technologies and all that stuff. So on one hand, it is pretty cool, but on the other, at some point you do want some stability to your day, to your life, not always chasing. I know in this business, this has never been a business like that, that you just do the same thing, or maybe not the same thing, but you work with some technology for 25 years or 45 years and you retire. Yeah, those times are over. I mean, those times has never been in this profession, because even when I started, it was a relatively new profession. So we have always been on the kind of a forefront of the technology. So it has always been, a lot of learning, a lot of hacking, a lot of innovation, and that kind of stuff. Problem solving, basically. So yeah, it's kind of a business I chose. So definitely I shouldn't be complaining about that. But as I said, at some point you do want some stability, some structure to your day, not just running around all day, every day. Okay, come on. Oh, and I turned on the computer. It happens. Looks like Windows didn't shut down properly. Because indeed it did not. There. Okay, come on. Are you gonna let loose? No, the only tough part over here is not to break antennas. Especially if you're doing it for profit. If you if you damage the antennas, you have a problem.
You got the feeling.
Alrighty, so imagine that now, provided that everything went well, right? That you didn't damage the cables, you didn't damage the screen, you didn't damage antennas, everything went well. Took an hour and a half so far, and you made $50, maybe, if you're lucky. So yeah, definitely this is not what I would consider a good business, fixing these, but a little bit of patience and you can get it done. So I just want to give it a quick test before we close it up. The screen does work, the display. Now we'll check digitizer. It's extremely time-consuming process, unfortunately, but well. Now you understand why I would have to charge a lot for the password recovery, because, or any kind of repair on this. Now imagine on top of anything I have to do to that computer, I have to go through that process. Removal of the adhesive and replacing the adhesive. That alone is a lot of work, and on top of that, if there's something wrong with the computer, then I have to figure out what's wrong with the computer, right? So no, these are not necessarily good candidates for repair. And our digitizer doesn't seem to work. Yeah. Digitizer is not working. Now let's do the let's see, did we not? Oh, everything is fine here. See, and that's the, now we don't know if the digitizer was even working on this device, right? You're buying stuff used, and that's what you can expect. And let's put it to BIOS and see what's up. Yeah, touch firmware is okay. Oh, okay, the digitizer works here in BIOS. It is, sometimes it behaves like that, so we'll have to boot to Windows and make sure our devices are okay, but the digitizer works just fine in BIOS. That's why it's important to check in BIOS. Don't jump to conclusions just yet. Okay, so it works. Now, final piece to the puzzle, replacing the screen. Okay, that is pretty much the procedure. Now I'm gonna leave it clamped for a while, but only at the top, because the top is what's gonna unglue the first. This is the part that experiences the most temperature, right? We don't have a fan on this one. On Surface Pro 4, the heat is pushed away using the fan located over here. This one does not. So the entire heat from the heatsink is going up, which puts a lot of strain on the adhesive at the top. And as I said, if it starts peeling, the ground connection, which is here, is not going to be good. Digitizer is going to give you problems, either partially stop working or just not always reactive, all kinds of stuff. But this is pretty much it. What do you think? Is that worth, that's 2 hours of work. Is that worth maybe 50 bucks? As I said, maybe, if you manage to actually sell it at a decent price. But more realistically, it's 20, maybe 30 bucks that you that you can make on these. So I don't think so. But I have the screens, I have the devices. Now I have to just fix them all and sell them. So if you're interested in this beautiful Surface Pro 5, let me know. It's for sale. Otherwise, it's going to be listed on eBay. That'll do for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate you. And I shall see you in the next one.